Okay, now let's talk. Wow! And you see this group that becomes the blacks come into existence. A hell of a thing. Never would have happened absent having to learn the English or the French or the Spanish or the Dutch. However, once that happened, that became the bridge across which they began to, in the words of Michael Gomez, exchange their country marks. Are you with me so far? Okay, we'll talk about Africa next week. Now we're talking about Europe. Back to the point. We're on page 10. Europe formation. The social basis of European civilization was among those whom the Romans called the barbarians. Prior to the 11th or 12th centuries, the use of the collective sense of the term barbarian was primarily a function of exclusion rather than a reflection of any significant consolidation among those people. Let's flip back for a moment to the end of chapter 3. And what page were we on? 65. Let's go back to page 65, where the conclusion was, among the several curious and unhappy legacies in Western civilization are those centuries nearest to us. Those centuries nearest to us. Use your context clues developed over the last 60 seconds. When would those centuries begin? Do you think? The 11th and 12th. We good so far? Very good. Let's go back to chapter 1. Keep your finger back on 65 and go back to chapter 1. I lost anybody yet? And it's going to be real difficult for you to have the book. And me being who I am, with tears in my eyes at the end of another long day, will patiently try, while fielding phone calls and filling out papers and trying to put out fires, to answer the question of anybody who doesn't have the book today who will ask me tomorrow or the next day, or maybe by the end of the semester, or maybe before this paper is due again, to answer the question that we have just answered. Because they didn't bring the book to me. I'm going to try, but be a little patient with me if I get a little impatient after trying to answer the question that we just answered. I'm not talking to most people, so let's continue. Old folks say throw hot water out the back door after you finish washing with it, and a bunch of dogs out there, only the one that gets hit will holler. So I know that most people didn't get hit by that hot water. So let's continue. The term signified that the, quote, barbarians had their historical origins where? Beyond the civilizing reach of Roman law and the old Roman imperial social order. The Europe! Oh my God, he's got Europe in quotation marks. What does that mean anytime you see that?
It is not.
Yes, that's right. He's using it in a very particular way. It's not universal, and the Europe is not even real. Say it again. It's not what? It's not idea. It's an idea, and it doesn't exist yet. He's saying what we now call Europe, back then was Europe, but not really. What is it at that point? He says the Europe of the 9th century, for which the Carolingian family and its minions claim paternity. Oh, let's stop right there. Do we need to know at this point who the Carolingians are? It's not essential to the main theses. However, it's a curiosity, and it's a curiosity that we should satiate, we should satisfy, if for no other reason that we want to know. But what are the Carolingians claiming? Paternity, meaning what? If there's a Europe, we're the what of it? The fathers of it. Which means they're gonna construct an idea of blood lineage. Is that true in the 9th century for what we call Europe? No. It's an imagined thing. So he's saying the thing they claim paternity for was rather limited geopolitically and had a rather short and unhappy existence. Meaning what? He's not talking about what we're coming to. What century was this? 9th. We ain't even got there yet. We ain't got to the point yet. Interestingly, for several centuries following the deaths of who? Charlemagne and his immediate heirs, the last being Arnulf, died 1899. Wait a minute. What is Charlemagne? Oh, context clues. Who is Charlemagne? Y'all know y'all learned this in the first grade? Yes. Oh my God! Charlemagne is affiliated or associated with which contemporary nation state? France. Are we clear that there's no France when he was alive? You see how this thing works? You take something that exists now and then back map it through time. Charlemagne is known for unifying what? Europe, except it ain't no Europe. In fact, when you see the name Charlemagne, you usually associate it with 3 words in a phrase. It's called the HRE. What? The Holy Roman Empire. The the Holy Roman Empire, which means Charlemagne is there to restore order that revolves around what entity, what concept? The church, except the dude got a sword. It's like Bob Marley, except a lot earlier. He's the Lion of Judah, or David, a lot later. At least in his mind. He unified Europe. Now, context clues based on what we read in those two sentences. Charlemagne would be part of what family? Also start with a C. Oh my God! The Carolingian. Caroline. Sweet Caroline. Then we have some states in the country in the United States named for North and South. Carolina. Carolingian. Who's from South Carolina? What's the capital? Columbia, but what's the most important city? Yes, indeed. If you're ever to Charleston, it looks like New Orleans. You know why? That's the French impulse. So we call this the United States, and that's all cute, but let's put that in quotes too, United States. These are the colonies of Europe. New Orleans is part of Louisiana, which is French, then and now, mixed up with a lot of other stuff, but that is not Iowa. And ain't neither one of them New York, and ain't neither three of them Tennessee. It's been centuries since the how many centuries has it been since they were colonies? 12? I mean, like real world history time? Like 12 centuries would be like the period between when they built the pyramids and the second intermediate period in Kemet. I mean, not very long, but long enough to have something. 12 centuries, no, 2 centuries and some change. The American Revolution was what, 1776, 1876, 1976, 200, yesterday. These places haven't been around long enough to congeal into an idea. The only thing that gets them close is the immigrants keep coming here. We continue. In other words, it takes a long time to get the idea of a nation in your blood. At this point, there is no France. There's Charlemagne and his family congealing into what we call the Carolingians, and they are considered those who try to first create an idea of Europe in the 9th century. Does it succeed according to Robinson, what we read so far? No. Fits and starts. Let's continue. Both the emperor and Europe were more the stuff of popular legend and clerical rhetoric than manifestations of social reality. Duh. We know that now, right? All right, you know where we are. See me on page 10? Anybody at this point not know what we're doing? Why be silent? You just scratch it. There's some smiles. There's some friends. The idea of Europe. No longer a what? This is what I love about it. Let's drop that great Senegalese scholar Sheikh Anta Diop into the conversation. He's coming in out of the sky. He ain't nowhere where he is actually in this book. But much later, oh, Professor Diop, you doing? What do you want? He says, there was a time if you go to Africa and told them that Europe was going to run the world, they'd have laughed you off the continent. Why is that important to note at this moment? When people are in slavery, and I've experienced discrimination myself, as he says because when you understand history, it gives you the serenity to accept the facts as they are. Very recently, they would have thought the idea of Europe was an impossibility. And now we look as if the society we live in is inevitable. A thesis of this book is that no condition is permanent. That's a conceptual thesis of black Marxism. And then ultimately, the society you live in is the society that you make. Black people ain't never going, what are you talking about? Man, Charlemagne, man, all his relatives dead. This idea of Europe's going to die with us. Yes. No, I can't remember it. Somebody repeat it for me. No condition is permanent. Thank you. Of course, I can remember, but I didn't see difference. Yeah, no condition is permanent. And the society, you live in it, it's the one you made. That's it. How much benefit, this is what Sheikh Anta Diop would argue when they say, Professor Diop, you're a Negro. Yes, I am. You're talking about Egypt. Yes, I am. You spent your whole life ranting and raving about classical Africa. Well, not all my life, but much of it, yes. Why? He says because the more history you understand, the more you understand that this thing is completely under your control. Because ain't nothing that looks like what it looks like today, what it always looked like. Come on. We ran the world. They have yet to produce a society.